Okay, looking at quadratic domain and range, if you really have to look at the curve because sometimes it can fool you. If you are given a parabola, and generally they'll have two arrows like this, if it looks like that, if it's got two arrows on it, the domain is always the domain, which is x, all real numbers. Okay, the range, if you remember, that's the y value. The range is whatever the lowest, if it's an upward facing parabola, whatever the lowest is, it's set equal to that and everything higher than that. So if this was, say, -4, the domain, the range, be y is greater than or equal to -4. It's everything greater than -4 because it goes on to infinity. Okay, the domain, which is what x can be anything from the left to anything to the right. That's important. Okay, if you have a downward facing parabola, same thing. Okay, if it's got the two arrows like that, the domain is all real numbers. And the range is, depending on what that maximum value is right there. Okay, say if that was +5, then the range would be y is less than or equal to 5. That's just by looking at it, okay? If they give you an equation and say, what is the domain? Generally, if they give you an equation of the domain, I can put anything in for x. So the domain's still all real numbers. The range, you kind of have to figure out where the vertex is and determine whether it's a maximum or minimum and go from there. Okay, now, sometimes you might be given something with limits on it. Okay, you might be given something that looks like this and like that. Remember, if it's an open circle, it has no equal sign attached to it. You're still looking for the domain and range. Okay, so the domain is the x value, remember? What can x be? So it can be anything from there to there. But this one's going to have an equal sign attached to it, and this one isn't. So say this was -5, and this was +4. Okay, so the domain in this case could be -5 is less than x. It's got to be an x because it's a domain, which is less than or equal to +4. Notice the 4 has the equal sign because it's a solid bubble. Now, when you're looking at the range, let me get rid of all this stuff here. Oops. Let me redraw that on there. Okay. Let's square this away. Okay. Now, if you're looking at the range, we did something like this. Now you have to go from what can y be? So the lowest point up to the highest point. You don't go from this open circle over here. You don't go from there to the highest point. You go from the lowest point of the function. Okay, so if this were, say, -3, so the range would be -3 is less than or equal to y, because it's part of that solid line. And then it goes up to here, just say that was 6, which is less than or equal to 6. Okay, so the domain we said earlier was, I think we said that was -5, -5 less than x less than or equal to +4. This was 4, this was -5. And then the range goes from here to here. Okay, you always go from low to high. And that's how you do domain and range. But keep in mind, a lot of times, the domain will be all real numbers. In most cases, it'll be all real numbers unless it has those endpoints attached to it. The domain is the one that's limited by the vertex. It's either the maximum or the minimum, and you have to kind of look at that as each problem applies. Okay, and that's it.